Of the ethos of this podcast about raising awareness. Like you said, a lot of people don't know about the conditions in the north, right in their own backyard. They don't know about the things that you were talking about, the isolation due to like broken treaties and that kind of thing. So it's really good work that you're doing to get that knowledge out there.
Yeah, no, that's one of the main things that I want to represent with this podcast, and I really appreciate you coming on. So now we'll talk about one of my other passions, and I'm also an advocate for mental health. But when I searched you, because I just did a little bit of research before you came here, I saw that you were representing Bell Let's Talk. And, our generation is a lot more understanding with respect to mental illness, but we still live in a day and age where some jobs may not be okay with people needing a mental health day. I was talking to my friends about this. I work at Olive Garden, and if I called, hey, like I'm feeling depressed or I'm not in a good mood, I can't come to work, they would laugh because it's just not mainstream 100% yet. And so for people who don't know you, but you came out with having an addiction, and I believe that's extremely commendable. One day when I am a little bit more credible and established, I do plan out to come out with my story. But, considering all things, I don't think it's a good move right now. But taking that into consideration, what made you decide to come out with your addiction?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I had hid that part of my past for a really long time. So I've been clean for just over 6 years now, and I only started speaking about this just over 2 years ago. And I spent those 4 years trying to put as much distance between me and that woman that I used to be as possible. I didn't want my new job, my coworkers to know anything about that. I had new friends. I got rid of all of my old friends. You gotta cut out the people in your lives that are your triggers or whatever like that. So I had a whole bunch of new friends. I didn't want those people to know. And these are people that loved me, like genuinely loved the person that I had become. And I didn't want them to know anything about my past. So what made me start talking about it was I had a really good friend. Her name's Jennifer Reimer. And we lost touch. She was one of the casualties of that healing process I needed to go through. You got to cut out the people in your life that maybe aren't very good influences. So she was a casualty of that process. And years later, she reached out to me, and it was very cordial. It was nice, just how you doing? Things are good. Yeah, hope things are well with you. And eventually, through a brief conversation, it was Facebook messaging, she sort of said, yeah, we miss you. Like, you kind of fell off the face of the earth. You kind of felt like you abandoned us, left us, like you just left us. And there was truth to that. Absolutely. I had to do what I had to do to get myself right. And then a couple years later, she lost that fight. She overdosed and she died. So, I can't even talk about this without crying.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I don't mean to provoke you.
No, it's good. It's good. So when she died, her words really resonated with me, that I left them alone. I had just abandoned them, and they felt like, she felt like she just got left behind to fight on her own. And so I started speaking out because I didn't want anybody that was going through addiction to feel like they were alone. So that's why I started speaking out.
And just taking all that in consideration, what you were saying before, you are privileged. Like, you came from a good place, and that just goes to show that this can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're poor, if you're rich, if you're black, if you're white. It doesn't matter if you're a girl or boy. Like, anybody is susceptible to suffering from addiction. I have a lot of friends who I had to cut out, and I have friends that are really close to me right now that it would be smart for me to cut them out, but it's hard because every time I'm with them, every time I go out, I have to, stay away from all that stuff. And, when I meet a new group of friends and we go out and they just have drinks and that's that, I feel just a sense of relief because I'm like, wow, finally I'm with people that don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I have multiple friends who OD'd on fentanyl, and Most of them are back to doing what they've been doing, although they've almost had life-threatening situations, like times where they would be dead if they were not saved in an ample amount of time. It is a powerful thing. It is easy to fall back in that loop. Like, I remember, I want to get your opinion on this. You know, I've had my own battles with addiction. Thought to myself that, you know, that was me in the past. I'm no longer like that. And I remember I was talking to these ladies that I went to school with, and they were really smart. They took a lot of, like, upper-level psychology. And they said that once you're an addict for life. And it took me a long time to accept this. Like, I was arguing with them, and I was like, no. But now that I'm looking back on it, I accept it. Okay, I have a addictive personality, you know, like everything I have to do is an extreme. I feel like the most beneficial thing is like channel your addictions to healthy outlets.
100%.
Yeah. Do you agree with that? Yeah, that you pretty much once you're an addict, you're almost an addict for life, but it's up to you to make those healthy addictions.
Absolutely. And even to this day, if I have one too many drinks, I can easily see myself and I haven't had a line of Coke or done any meth for like years and years and years, but even to this day, there's still that pull. And it's just because you're right, it's in my DNA. Like, I just have that personality. It's just who I am. And you're right, finding healthy ways. Like, I smoke a lot of weed now because it's a good drug in my opinion. And it helps me. Well, I use it to manage anxiety and that kind of thing, but I think it takes the edge off of that need to, I don't know what it is, but that need to
do something. It makes me feel good. I know it can be negative for some people. I feel like there's two different types of stoners. Like, are you going to be productive and do it, or are you going to, like, help it get through the day and help tackle tasks while you're high or whatever? I mean, well, with all things considered, what actually sparked your addiction in the first place, if you're okay with talking about it?
Yeah, you bet. So I started out, this is so dumb, and it's such a cliche story. I started doing meth because it was passed around, and I just did it. And this was back in the day, you know, I was 16-ish, before, I didn't even, smartphones weren't around, didn't Google it, didn't know what it was. I was told that it was good for studying. And
Really?
and that's how it started. It was good for studying. I did really a lot of studying that year. But I never got like really bad into it. It was, I didn't have a ton of access to it. So it was when it came around, usually about twice, maybe 3 times, you know, once a week kind of, you know, 3 or 4 times a month. And that went on for a little while. That wasn't what did me in. I had to come off of that. But that wasn't what, I don't want to say that meth is not, meth is really bad.
Yeah,
kids, don't do it.
Don't do it. And yeah, kids need to know the compound itself is pretty analogous to, you know, things such as Adderall or Concerta. And so, I mean, people taking a lot of Adderall recreationally is going to have a similar effect to methamphetamine. I mean, it sounds worse on surface level, but it's essentially biochemically, pharmacologically, it's the same. It's pretty similar to the same thing.
That's really interesting. I guess that's why somebody said it was good for studying.
It's just the same type of
family?
molecule. Yeah, it's same family molecule, yeah.
Interesting. So anyway, that wasn't even what did me in. So after high school, I only did it for a couple years. Didn't have access to it. That was fine. My dad died a year after high school. I was 19, 2005 anyway. And that spun me out completely. I didn't have the tools to cope with that. I was already hanging out with people that I probably shouldn't have been hanging out with. I hadn't even drank that much at that point. Like, I was just smoking weed. Like, that's all I ever needed. But then, I slipped into this crazy depression. Anxiety went through the roof. When my dad died, it just spun me out. I turned to drugs and alcohol to self-medicate, you know, just to numb the pain and honestly blur the lines on the path, like, because anyway. So that was the triggering event. But then you try it a couple times. Okay, this is just a fun recreational thing. And then, you know, it moves from weekends to during the week, and then it's every day, and then it's an 8-ball every 2 days, and you're all of a sudden kicked out of your faculty at university, fired from a couple jobs, kicked out of your home. Wow. So you're homeless now. I was homeless for the better part of a year.
Oh, wow.
Hidden homeless, though. So I had friends that I would couch surf and, you know, just from spot to spot for a while. And yeah, that's how it started out. And then it went on for like 9 years, over 9 years, because the problem is that you think you're in control.
Yeah.
You really do. It's just fun. People should get off my case, all that kind of thing. So, yeah.
See, and I would not even expect that at all. Just like seeing you on surface and seeing where you are now. Man, we have similar stories. Like, I was homeless too, but not for a year. I was kind of closet homeless. I was living in my car, sleeping couch to couch.
Yeah, hidden homeless, they call it.
Yeah, I never heard of that before, but I just remember it's one of the most scary, terrifying. It was probably the worst time of my life. But I remember I saw this quote that really resonated with me by J.K. Rowling. I'm sure you've said it before. Rock bottom became the solid foundation for which I built my life. And, I think this is kind of relatable to certain situations. Like whenever I see somebody who's, just broke up with a girlfriend or they're in a really negative spot, I always just tell them to, if they're really sad, I'm like, just feel these emotions, be sad for a bit, and then let it motivate you to become better. I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, but you have to find the reason for why it happened. Like, you can be an addict and you can, lose your faculty, like be homeless, lose your friends, and be in a negative spot. If you didn't look at it in a positive way, like, okay, that's as low as it can go. Now it can only go up from here. And now, like, make some big goals and slowly attack those goals. You can make anything really positive for you, but there's a catch to that. If you don't treat it in that way, it can be really detrimental. Like, people, not a lot of people come back from that. And that's why it's so inspiring. Like, I didn't even know this about you. I just saw the 350 pounds of food, and we seem to be more relatable than I thought. So, that just goes to show that people can come back from addiction, and people can make a negative thing extremely positive if they look at it in a positive way. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, too, we need help. I think the system is broken, especially for addicts. We're getting there with mental health in general. I think it's more acceptable to say I have anxiety or I have depression or whatever it is. Much less acceptable to say I'm a junkie, whatever.
Oh, yeah. No, it's true. Like, I have addicts, like, throughout my whole family, and that it kind of goes the same with, like, ex-convicts, for example. Like, they don't have very many outlets. It's not like it's easy to get a job once you have that criminal record. With that all being said, what's your opinion just on, young people having social media and, how the dopamine effect of getting likes and reinforcing that addiction at such a young age? Like, how do you think and once you're an addict, you're always an addict. How do you think that's going to translate to future generations?
That's such a good question. I mean, I have anxiety around social media just as myself. Like, I post something and I'll just stress about it for days and days. Even doing things like this, like. Oh yeah,
I was nervous. Armpits are sweaty.
Same.
That's why you took off the sweater.
But yeah, I wonder about that, especially as I have a little niece and nephew, and I see them just glued to their screen, and how that's remapping their neural connections. I don't even know, and I honestly think about how fortunate I was I didn't grow up with social media. I think that would have been hellish for junior high school.
Yeah.
It creates unrealistic standards, and life is hard enough as it is. And then for kids too, like in those formative years, I think we'll see a dramatic increase in instances of childhood anxiety and depression.
Definitely. Just because, it's just a way to reinforce bullying and things along those lines, and people are becoming so dependent on it that it is going to be scary. Like, I have no idea what the future holds, but I do know that with all this screen time, it's not going to have any positive effects. Like, just from having this podcast, and like, I was in a really negative spot this past couple of days, but I think that was just due to the fact that I was just like, I want everything now, and I'm not. Then I'd take a step back and just realize I got to be patient for it to come.
And that's something we all struggle with. I struggle with that to this day. Like, I have so many things that, like, I struggle with where I am in my life right now. I'm not happy with it. And, you laugh because it's, how could that be? But everyone goes through it. It's a never-ending thing. I was just thinking about that today. I messaged my girlfriend. I saw a little meme, and it was just like, you don't have to be married by 30. You don't have to have a house by, all these things. 'Cause I don't have any of those things. And it's just like, but we have these standards that we hold ourselves to that are totally unrealistic. These timelines that are imposed on us, and it's just bullshit. So, yeah, patience.
It is. You just got to live the life that you want to live. And, it kind of reminds me of this one thing, like when I was just training, like I box as well, right?
Cool.
I love that because you can be training like 4 hours a day and I can just channel everything into it. It's so amazing. But I remember I was like super nervous at the gym, like because I would look like an idiot when I'm like punching with weights and stuff like that. But, one of my friends, Dylan, was just like, Justin, are you just going to let other people's opinions of you looking like an idiot to them really deter you from chasing your dreams? And I was like, hit me. I was like, no. Can't let those people affect what I'm chasing and what I want to do. And it even goes to with this podcast. Sure, I get anxious. Sometimes I post it. I'm like, okay, like who the hell is going to see this? Like out of everybody that I've met in my life, like do I just have like a fan that just watches all of them, or, does nobody watch them? It's scary and it's very anxiety provoking, but that's just the nature of the beast.
It is, yeah. And it's just going to keep getting worse and worse, I think.
So tell me, please, what is